Marijuana legislation will be on the ballot in several states this election year, and more Republican lawmakers at the state and the federal level are throwing their support behind the effort. An October Gallup poll shows 68% of Americans support legalized weed, a record high for Gallup, and that includes 83% of Democrats and half of Republicans. Joining us now is criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Schwartz. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. All right, nearly half of Republicans now support the decriminalization of cannabis. What could GOP support in the effort towards legalization mean? I mean, is this potentially a major turning point, not just for the industry, which of course is growing, but also have legal implications?
Right. You need GOP support, obviously, to pass legislation. And this idea that you mentioned in the beginning of each state passing its own legislation, it's not going to work from an infrastructure standpoint. You need to create a federal legal industry. So you need federal legislation supported by both houses, and whereby you could have a decriminalization of marijuana, and therefore you could stop the illegal trade that's going on right now or will go on in the future. You also need to set up a federal banking system for marijuana. Right now, marijuana dealers can't do any of their banking because of the fact that it's still criminalized federally.
Yeah, very challenging. I think you hit on something there when we're talking about, the federal aspect of this. Representative Nancy Mace, she's a Republican of South Carolina. She first introduced this bill to decriminalize marijuana, to tax, to regulate, to expunge certain criminal records, telling Politico, quote, "We need the federal government to just get out of the way. I tried to be very thoughtful about what I put in the bill that would appeal to Democrats and Republicans, which is why criminal justice reform is part of it." So your thoughts on where both sides can find common ground?
Right. There has to be common ground. I don't agree with the fact that the federal government needs to get out of the way. In fact, they have to get in the game completely. The federal government needs to regulate this. There needs to be an intense regulation of marijuana, the same way we regulate tobacco, the same way we regulate alcohol. There needs to be an extensive program of federal regulation of marijuana so we could set up a banking system that could support this industry. We could set up a tax structure. Don't forget, you have high tax states and low tax states. And what happens with cigarettes is the cigarettes come from the low tax states, get bootlegged into the high tax states, and therefore it creates a criminal enterprise. You do not want the same thing to happen with marijuana. You want to be able to regulate it and create an equal tax structure throughout the country.
Yeah, that's what the industry's been calling for as well. When we talk about the GOP on this issue, is there a generational divide that has to be addressed on the Republican side when it comes to this issue?
Right. There's always a generational divide. So when you and I speak to so many GOP lawmakers on both sides, Democratic lawmakers, and certainly the younger generation is much more open to industries like marijuana. The new generation, you could be a Republican, you could be pro-business, you could be for less regulation, but certainly you could be for this new generation of industry. And you can't fight the fact that marijuana is a viable industry now, and it's going to be a viable industry. So if you just look at it from an economic and a business standpoint, we might as well get the most out of this industry rather than allow it to be traded illegally like it's been already. So it's very important that the new generation gets involved and we get this industry regulated and legalized.
So a quick follow-up. We don't have too much time, but just a timeline on this. When do you see the GOP, making a major move on this issue at the federal level?
Well, it could be very soon, because obviously you've got the midterm elections. Yeah, and I don't think this is going to be a hot button issue no matter what. I think we have a lot of issues in this country right now. Yeah. But certainly if the GOP became became open to this industry and regulated it and brought in this new generation and showed that the GOP is not the old GOP, but it's the new GOP that's open to new industries, I think politically it could be a great issue for them, especially given the statistics that you gave in the beginning of the report showing the overwhelming support for legalizing marijuana.
Attorney David Schwartz, thank you very much. We appreciate your insights. Kevin?
Thank you.